So what can we do to help this user adoption? One of the things is consider optional versus required fields. Direct that user through this. Let them know what the important information is. Sometimes in training, you have to go down through and explain this. It's like, well, this field doesn't mean anything to me, but yet maybe for management reports, it has a lot of value. So when you're looking at your forms, don't just put the fields up there. Determine what is required fields and make them required. Force them to enter it. It helps them understand what they've got to do and what their minimum requirement is per form. Offer ballot selections only. If you selected A over here and only B and C is the correct value in the next field, then you only offer them B and C. Don't let them make an invalid selection. Leads to better data integrity. Leads to less data cleanup. It leads to all these things. And then if you've got this big list of 50 items, and why not put an initial list up there with 4 or 5 that filters that list down so that they're guided down to making the correct selections, and especially if there's multiple selections that are very close to each other. Allows you to, narrow that down. If you make a selection yes or no, then you need some additional information. Hide the field until they need to enter it. Then when it displays, they know they have to enter in some value into it. So, along with those lines is use pick list. Use lookup list as often as possible versus free text fields. Saves you a lot of time and trouble when you're trying to run reports. How many of this are there? And then, the different ways to spell it. AT&T, is it AT space and A space? There's an AT&T, no spaces. So put it up there. Allow them, put it in a pick list. Put it in a lookup list. And then that way that they're only making valid selections and no one's trying to figure out their spelling if they type things in wrong. Keep the forms, clean and simple. So how do we keep our forms clean and simple? CRM offers some unique capabilities now that they didn't have a few years ago, and that's multiple forms. If my job duties only require me to see these 10 fields, make a form, those 10 fields. This other job over here needs to see this other 10 plus these fields, or just a whole other set of fields. Make a form for that. Their security roles can then control what form comes up. Then based off of that form, they're not up there making a selection at the top, having to scroll halfway down the page to make some more entries into a form. How many times have you gone out to a place, enter this, now scroll down to here, and then have to re-enter again? Every time I see a form like that, I cringe. Let's keep stuff up. Let's keep things moving because, that also leads to, by multiple forms, minimizing those forms and only putting up there what's needed. Helps with security. If you've got a social security number up there, obviously you might have it as a 4 digits, you might have it just as pieces, but if someone's job doesn't require to see it at all, why put it up there? Then you don't have to worry about security, you don't have to worry about these other things. We've minimized the forms, and then that means we can minimize the rules, we can improve the performance of the form, the speed it loads, and that. The other thing is when you're doing this, we now have mobile devices to consider. Before it was just the browser. Now we've got tablets, we've got, mobile devices. How are these forms going to lay out into those other devices? We want to talk about user adoption. If you took one of your big forms and put it in a mobile device, imagine scrolling through your mobile device to get to the different information that's important to you. So when you're looking at this, consider each of these things independent. Don't come up there and try to, make one form to fit all. That kind of, ties a little bit into, what Carla was talking about earlier, bringing all these things in. She had some very good points, which, I hope to talk a little bit more about later because there are some other great things in here to help with user adoption. So the top 3 tips we're going to cover today. Enter once. End results and success plans. So enter once. How do we not take this form and I enter this information in, enter in Mike Busby, how does that now get out to these other systems? How many times have you gone out there and you've got these systems and it's Mike Busby, it's Michael Busby over here, and it's just Busby, M. Busby, or something like that. So the idea is to take some of this information, enter it once, and then how do we get it into other forms, other places in CRM, other applications? End result, consider the form and data, including reports. Why are we doing something? And then a success plan. So enter once. We've got some great tools that are out of the box and some that we've going to have to design. Workflows, dialogue, business rules, out of the box with CRM. We can set up workflows that trigger upon save, go do this, send out an email. Dialogues that can pop up and can actually, based upon selections, guide you through the entry path. So if you've got a help desk, leading them down through, what device are you calling about? Then based off of the device, maybe ask a different question, and then get down to where the form is. Business rules. I made selection A. That makes selection B required. Or I got to hide these or add other pieces in there. So all these things can push data around, move data around, and get it to where it wants. And then the final one is integrations. How can we then take this nice system we developed, and one of the things that was brought up was bring all this data into one place. Centralize your data. Chris brought it up. You've got all these multiple systems. Each one has a licensing fee associated with it. There's a cost associated with it. So if you've got Oracle, if you've got GP, you've got these other things. Not everyone needs to have a license to see that information. So why isn't there an integration to pull your invoices back into CRM? At that point, that could be read-only in CRM. So you define the master and you can make different things read-only. Now what happens is they're looking at everything in one place. Working with a place right now, and they've got these kiosks and all this information that's happening and that's running through a third-party app. They only care about one piece of it. But we're pulling in all this information so that they can see the timing as things are moving through the kiosk, back to the warehouse, back to the kiosk, and when the customer picks it up. And all during this time, emails are going out. Well, they were sending some emails out from over here, some from over here. The nice part is now it's in one place. So from an end-user part, now they're directing everybody to CRM because all this information is coming into one place. They can do all their initial research and all these other things, and when they start finding anomalies, they send it off to the proper department to look further into it. So with the integrations, we're able to centralize the data into one place, and they can see it. So as the data from one system is being entered in, it's automatically pushing to another system. And as much as it can push into CRM, CRM can push it back out. So enter once. How many times have you had to do duplicate entry into different systems? And now they're all laid out different. You got to remember the different ways to do it. If you enter it in once, you can push it out. You've standardized how the names are formatted, how addresses are formatted, how all the different information is formatted and laid out. And the nice part is people are going to one place for one piece of, to do all their tasks and chores. And can reduce your licensing costs because now they don't have to have a license to get into all these different systems. So what it does is it helps to simplify that user's ability to manage their task and improve time. I'm in one system. I don't have to have 3 different windows open. Search Mike Busby, enter it up over here. Search Mike Busby, enter it over here. So it allows me to better organize my time, be more efficient with my time, and you can put in the controls around it. Encourage users to discuss their routine tasks. So how many times have we gone off there and designed something without the end user in mind? You've got to encourage that end user to come up and make suggestions and ideas to improve your system. Your system is not static, it's dynamic. It's easy to add, adjust, modify, and improve. And it should be growing with your business not your business growing around it. So as your business is growing, adapt your system to maintain with it, which helps the users move along with it. They're now entering in useful information. They're not repurposing fields. They're not doing these other things. So what happens, they can tell you, hey, we're not really using this part anymore, or we're using it this way. Can we modify the system? So encourage that feedback from the end users, because ultimately, if they're not using it and they're not entering in the system, then your data is only as good as the people, entering it and their willingness to enter that data. And then again, if they don't have to go into multiple applications to enter things, and all of a sudden you introduce a new application or a new piece, they're not rolling their eyes. Oh, now I got to enter it into fourth place. Give them that, but give them the wins with it too, and that's by pushing this same data out to as many different locations as you can. So.
I'm going to make one additional point that one really hidden cost for not doing the integrations, or especially pushing this stuff from one system, is really, like Chris was talking about. Today you say, okay, well, I have 5 systems, and the user has to re-enter username, or re-enter the first name and email address to 5 different systems. That's not a problem. Great. Good. 2 years later, the same admin comes back and says, well, now we need to integrate all these systems. Well, now you have 5 different systems, and you have no common key to merge all the records together. So maybe you have first name, last name in an email that was the initial enter, but now you have billing history, you have performance history, you have some other history. I just manage all the systems, and you want to pull all of these things together into one system. Now you have very big logical task on hand, because you will have no way to say that this contact in this system is equal to this contact in this system, therefore all of this data should be compiled together. So when you do that integration point where you push the stuff out from one system, or you link them together, at the start point, you can actually start filing additional data elements for reporting and for process perspective down the line. So that's another big design consideration that a lot of companies find them, and then in a big hole right there. So just another thinking point.
But with this, the thing is we're going to talk a little bit deeper, but if you looked at starting from your business for internal processes, starting off with HR, you'd have HR. You can then put in other systems, and now not only are you using one system, which we'll briefly talk a bit more when we hit tips and tricks of centralizing everything and centralizing your applications and stuff like this. What it does is now you only have to train them on one system, how it uses. They get really familiar with it, they get comfortable with it, and they learn the shortcuts of how to move from point A to point B quicker, faster, and versus trying to remember, well, now wait a minute, in this application I do it this way, this one I do it this way. So the other nice piece that we need to keep in mind when we're looking at user adoption and getting down through this is the end result. Why are we doing something? Are we, what are we trying to pull this end results with? Advanced finds, showing it in dashboards, SSRS reports, dynamic Excel reports. What's our end result? If our end result is only to capture, how many items closed, why do we need to capture these 50 other fields that don't lead up to that end result? You go into an auto place to get your car worked on because the muffler is making noise, and they start with the headlights. Well, okay, that was on their checklist, but did that need to be on the checklist? Look at your end results. What are you trying to achieve? What's that form for? What's those different pieces for? And then figure out all the pieces that you need to get to that end result. And, obviously there's other information than just the bare minimums. There's other information, but at the same time, always keep in mind what your end result is. And if someone understands what the end result is and what they're trying to achieve, most people are, and especially end users, are willing to do the work it takes to get you what you need. So I always find that really important. The other thing is if you're keeping that in mind, give them find out, your KPIs, your indicators around trying to reach those end results. Indicators of how much, how successful were you? How far along the path of getting to those points are you? Build up some reports to help them see this, track this, so that they can see their progress. They can see the overall progress, not only for management, but also for they can see their individual use. So next I want to talk about success plan. So if you sit there and look at it most firms mostly focus on getting the technology, getting the end users trained. You got strategy, business. Where buyers had effective usage rates below 50%. One of the key things, most important factor of realizing value, 70% of it is determined at user adoption. Not how well you thought something up, how well this plan was put into designed, laid out, and executed. It boils down to user adoption. If the user does not use it, it doesn't matter. So to me, one of the key factors that we should always be looking at is user adoption. Okay. Best practices to encourage this is get users involved early, roll out in phases, design and ease of use, train well, and start well. So these items at some point should be taken into consideration inside of your business plan. So as you're looking at training, it fits into your user adoption. The sooner you bring them in, I've found over time that, especially starting with people new to CRM, one of the first things I want to do before we get too deep into the business plans, within a week or 2 weeks, what do you think the first thing I want to do with the end users that are all part of the core team to roll out a CRM project? I want to do admin training. It may not be for everybody, but if somebody understands CRM, how it works, it helps make better decisions on how to do different things inside of CRM. Run through some new technologies or anything that we're going to possibly take advantage of. Bring those things up. Referencing back to the one company again with all these kiosks. They do lots of emailing. They were emailing straight from CRM. Hey, that's great. I want to put a logo on it. Well, wait a minute. Can CRM email a document with logos on it? Yes, it can. But the end user didn't know that. They only knew the email from the workflow. So I had to slow up, back up a little bit, and train them on email templates. Now they saw that. Now they can go modify their own templates. They don't have to call me and have me build them to just make a little simple wording change. As much as we empower the other users, I want to empower everybody to be able to manage and maintain as best they can themselves.